Okay, I want to keep myself honest and get this started before 5 past the hour, so let's start the webinar. First of all, thank you all for joining. Hopefully you all feel you're at the right webinar. This next 30 or 40 minutes is to discuss my first year new hire and onboarding methodology from Interactive Services. We'll be speaking today with KFC, who, as we go out throughout the session, they'll be talking about some of their new hire experiences as they've rolled out onboarding training throughout the last few years. Thank you, Neil. So a bit of background. We are Interactive Services. My name is Dan Brown. I'm the Chief Relationship Officer with Interactive Services. We're a global learning and development company. Our headquarters are in Dublin, but we have offices around the world. We've been creating award-winning training solutions for 24.5 years. We're 25 early next year. And one of the things I usually tell clients when I'm introducing ourselves for the first time is that we're purposefully industry agnostic. We like working across different sectors, for example, the tech industry or the financial industry or in retail, because the challenge is to bring quite different skill sets and solutions to the table are fun to develop, and it's fun to roll that experience into other industries and business areas. We've been creating onboarding training and solutions for global companies whose brands are very important to them for all of our 25 years. And that 25 years of experience of creating custom e-learning and onboarding training underpins the ideas we're going to talk about in the next 30 minutes or so. Rachel, I'm going to hand over to you now and let you say hello to the folks on the webinar.
Thanks, Dan, and hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Donley, and I'm the Learning Architect for KFC US. I've been working on onboarding programs and training programs for about 6 years now that help our restaurants across the U.S. In this country. Now, in the U.S., we are primarily franchised, so we're about 95% franchise owned, and we have approximately 62,000 employees total, and we hire approximately 11,000 employees a month.
Thanks, Rachel. So Neil, let's move on to the next slide. And Rachel, you and I, as an aside, have been working together now for 5 or 6 years across a number of projects, but we'll talk about some of those as we go through the next 30 minutes. We have a My First Year video. It lasts for about 2 minutes. We're not going to play all of it now. It is available on our website, but Neil, I'll ask you just to play the first 30 seconds or so just to set the scene for what we're going to talk about.
Okay, thanks, John.
How was your first day at work? Were you filled with enthusiasm? Or did you run for the door? 22% of staff turnover happens in the first 45 days, with a cost of up to 3 times the employee's salary. The attrition rate of disengaged employees is 12 times higher than for highly engaged employees. But organizations with good new hire programs experience a 50% lift in retention and a 54% lift in productivity. Welcome to My First Year. My First Year.
So I'll just wait for the presentation to come back up. So underpinning My First Year are 5 building blocks, and I'm going to talk about these for a moment here because we think that these are critical to a successful onboarding program. And this might on the surface seem straightforward, but in reality it's really quite difficult to achieve, and almost nobody feels good about having hit all of these 5 points as well as they'd like. In the 25 years that we've been creating onboarding content, we found that most onboarding programs fail. And the reason for that is often one of these 5 reasons, which is either, first of all, the analysis up front hasn't been done as effectively as it needs to be. So, for example, where are the attrition pain points? In other words, we know that if we can keep our new hires in the company past day 90, then they tend to stay for 3.5 years. Or we know that we want our employees or our folks in the manufacturing plants or our regional managers to be productive in X by day 30 and Y by day 60, but we're struggling to achieve those goals. So making sure we're really clear on what are the goals and the outcomes of our onboarding programs, and then creating design and roadmaps that everyone feels good are going to attack or make sure that those analysis points are successfully hit. Most folks that we work with are struggling with their LMSs or their technology platforms. if you can navigate through those platforms and find your content, the content needs to immediately gain the attention of the learners and make them feel that they really are going to be successful by taking the content. And then last, and possibly most importantly, even if your analysis and your design, your ease of access and your content is good, if your leaders aren't supporting the new hire program, if it isn't the lifeblood of what you do, then the likelihood is that your onboarding programs aren't going to be as effective as you'd like. Rachel, I might throw this open to you here. And one of the things I've always been impressed with in working with KFC is I think you do the analysis particularly well. So it'd be good to hear you talk about how you conduct onboarding analysis at KFC.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We've been very deliberate about how we conduct our analysis, and every time we start a new program, we always take a good chunk of time and make sure we really plan that out. And we actually start with doing a survey to our entire organization. Since we have such a diverse workforce, we want to make sure we're getting views from all different parts of the country and all different organizations. We then take that survey data, analyze it, and from that data, we create more focused questions, and then we hold focus groups across the country with various organizations and various roles, and then we also conduct stakeholder interviews with key members of our organization, both corporate and franchise. From there, we have really robust data, and we spend quite a bit of time combing through that and analyzing that. And from there, we come up with what we consider our topic list. We then take that topic list, gather key stakeholders in the organization again together, and together we all make sure that we're aligned and agreed upon that these are the core topics that we need to cover, the core needs from this program. From there, we actually start to move into design as well. So while we have those people together and while we're discussing those topics, we start the discussion about how are we going to actually execute this, what does the modalities look like, and what's realistic for our organization.
Thanks, Rachel. And one of the things I think you do particularly well at KFC is you understand the importance of bringing the right blend of folks together into the room at the beginning. You know, the operators, the end users, the SMEs, the stakeholders, the folks from your home office. And you know, I often think that creating onboarding programs and rolling them out and integrating them into an organization, they're almost like political campaigns. And if you can get the right people in the room and get them enthusiastic about the onboarding at the beginning and aligned as to what folks are trying to achieve, I really think that's money in the bank, and you guys do it particularly well.
Yep, absolutely. It is about buy-in 100% of the time, along the entire journey.
And this is an example of one of the roadmaps that we created for KFC's learners. So this was for an onboarding program for hourly restaurant employees to become service masters. And you can see here, I think some of the things that work here particularly well are that there's a clear roadmap, a welcome, a focus in right at the beginning on one of the outcomes of the program that was most important to KFC, which was cultivating an improved service culture within KFC. A journey throughout 8 or 10 building blocks here through to a capstone game, and then a completion and certification. And you can see down the bottom there's some clear markers to learners, read the curriculum being in progress, which pieces you've completed, where you've got together with your managers and you've completed your manager checkpoints and all that other good stuff. Rachel, is there anything else you'd like to say about this menu, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I think that was a good overview, and it's been a real success in our organization, having that clear journey for all of our learners.
Grand. So what is My First Year all about? Well, everything within our My First Year methodology is focused around 3 areas: engagement, retention, and productivity. So making sure that when your new hires join your organization, they are aligned and excited by your vision and your mission, that having gone to the expense of bringing your new hires into the organization, they stay with you, and then ensuring that your new hires are productive as quickly as possible, and are able to perform the functional skills that you would like them to, as well as you'd like them to do so. Okay, so why do we focus on engagement, retention, and productivity? Well, the data backs it up. Most of your employees, or most employee attrition, tends to happen within the first 3 months of joining an organization, and yet it typically takes around about 9 months for your new hire to be productive in the role. So how do we ensure that your new hires get past those attrition points, you know, with a lot of our organizations, particularly within our hourly workforces? We find that day 30, day 60 are big attrition pain points. And if we can just ensure that the new hires get past those points, that they go on to stay for, say, 2 or 3 years. And then productivity, particularly if you're bringing in thousands or tens of thousands of new hires into your organization, if we can reduce the time to productivity, then it you know, tends to pay for the new hire program many times over. I talked a little bit there about engagement. Well, if your employees are engaged, they're 12 times more likely to stay with your organization. The less positive way of saying that is that if your disengaged employees are 12 times more likely to leave your organization. And 45% of your employees, even if they're happy, are going to be looking for a job outside of their organization within the first year. So how do we go the extra mile and really make them believe in what we're up to? And then finally, culture. Especially amongst millennials, communicating your culture and connecting them to your organization is critical. Employees who give their company's culture lower marks are more likely to leave. And Rachel, again, I'm going to hand over to you here because I think, or I hope that most of the folks in this webinar, when they think of KFC, I think what KFC do very well is they communicate a very particular, very specific brand. But I'm curious, Rachel, as to how you communicate that brand and that culture to your new hires when they come into the organization.
Yeah, Dan, you're absolutely right. Culture is a huge part of KFC. We try to communicate it through everything we do. I mean, even just walking into a restaurant, I think you can feel the culture as a guest. And then in the back of the restaurant, we have specific messaging and communication boards and various things up that help communicate that to our teams as well. Not only does it keep them informed about what's going on in the restaurant or what's going on in the broader KFC system, but it helps to get that message across that they're really part of a family. And we have a message that we give to our team members and new team members that we're looking to hire. It's our people promise. And we say that at KFC, you can be your best self, make a difference, and have fun. And we definitely have fun as a team. Every restaurant is a family, and every team member you talk to agrees with that message. And we make a difference through the various charities we support. And the Be Our Best Self is a message that I think really helps us with attracting top talent and keeping that top talent as well. So in addition to providing robust onboarding programs and making sure that our team members can be their best self at work, we also have programs in place to help them be their best self outside of work too. So our KFC Foundation provides scholarships and GED programs to help those team members who would like to advance their education. And then we also have a program where you can receive college credit for taking your KFC onboarding training. So we're really trying to get that message across that you can really, have fun at work, be a part of a family, and be your best self both inside KFC and outside.
And for the other folks on the webinar, I guess one of my key takeaways there, Rachel, is that I know within the restaurant and retail industry, there's often sensitivity around time off the floor or time for training. So, some of those softer pieces or culture pieces, there can be resistance to put in the actual core curriculum. But I think if you're aware of your learner's physical environment, then there's a multitude of opportunities to communicate culture and make that, if not part of the core curriculum, then certainly something that your new hires see on day one and throughout their first few weeks within the organization.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on, why do a lot of onboarding programs fail? Well, we talked about some of those reasons, but here's some of the things we hear again and again when talking to learners or some of the pain points that organizations are trying to solve for. I turned up, it was like they didn't know I was coming. I've been here for 6 months and I still feel like an outsider. They were very good on day one or week one. In fact, I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. I had lots to learn and lots of support, but after 2 or 3 months, it felt like I'd been abandoned. And I think one of the critical ones for me is I'm really keen to be a success here. In fact, I'm desperate to be a success, but I'm just not entirely sure how to go about doing it. So I'm just not sure if this is the wrong job for me or if the organization aren't doing as good a job as they need to show me how to be successful. That's the new hires perspective. From the manager's perspective, we find there's often a blurred line between where the responsibilities between HR and managers begin and end. We hear managers say that I'm being told that I'm on the hook for the success of my new hires, but I don't feel I'm being given the tools I need to be successful. and I don't feel I often have the time to support new hires as I'd like. Rachel, talk to me a little bit about your manager support culture for your new hire training, because I know within the retail industry and the restaurant industry, it's so fast-paced that it can be difficult to balance, ensuring your restaurant makes money with doing a good job of bringing the new hire into the organization. So it'd be great to hear you talk about some of the tensions or some of the challenges there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think spot on from what you said. I think our biggest challenge with onboarding really drills down to we have a predominantly hourly workforce. And like you said, it's hard for managers to feel they have the time to support that or to complete the whole program. So, especially in our world, oftentimes when a new person is hired, it's because it's a really strong need to have that person in the restaurant. And they really need that labor, to take care of the guests or make the product. And so we're continuously working to educate our restaurant managers and explain to them and prove to them the benefits of completing the entire onboarding program and really making sure they understand the value. Because we know that if they take the time to really follow the process and allow that new hire the time needed to come up to speed in the most in the best way possible, that we know that they'll be more successful in the long run. So we're continuously working on that.
Thanks, Rachel. So we spent the last 15 minutes just talking about some of the background drivers for My First Year. Let's now move on to talking a little bit about what our My First Year methodology actually is. Well, My First Year is a new hire training and onboarding approach which is designed primarily to impact your employee engagement, retention, and productivity. Now, interestingly, with Rachel on the call, in talking to KFC and doing the analysis on our design for some of the KFC curriculum, we had some different goals or some other challenges to solve for there. But primarily, the starting point for My First Year is to impact your employee engagement, retention, and productivity. And that begins pre-day one, continues on day one throughout the first week, month, and throughout the first year to hopefully create agile individuals who have clear pathways to success. So what is My First Year? Well, to go back or to reference the building blocks that we talked about at the beginning, or I talked about at the start, which is it's making sure the analysis up front and the design and the roadmaps are created to underpin a platform that we're looking at here. But the content on the platform is it starts off as being off the shelf, but then customized based on the organization, the brand, and the business need, and then implemented to integrate with your existing IT infrastructures. So the My First Year platform has three levels of access. One is for your new hire, one is for their buddy, and the other is for their manager. And the idea of the My First Year platform is throughout the first year of the new hire's entry into the organization, they have a very clear roadmap of how to be successful on day one, week one, month one, and throughout that first year. That the platform is continually nudging the new hires and making sure that they're very clear on what they should have experienced, what they should know by now, the conversations they should be having. But also for the buddies and for the managers, there's a roadmap throughout the first year to ensure that managers are having the right conversations with their new hires at the right time, that they're checking in and providing sign-off or guidance, key moments to combat your attrition, and make sure folks are on the path to productivity. And the whole year, hopefully for new hires, managers and buddies should be as seamless as possible. So what does that look like, first of all, for the new hire? One of the things we try to do with My First Year is take or make the most of the new hire's enthusiasm as much as we can. So prior to day one, folks are incredibly keen to be successful at your organization. So what can I start doing in order to be successful in the organization on day one? Well, I can start to learn about who we are and what we do. You can give me information on how I can be successful in the organization. You can take away some of my fear or trepidation about day one by helping me understand what it's going to involve and how I can be successful. You can see there on the second tab from the left, the Getting to Know You tab. One of the things the platform does is aim to use technology to accelerate human connectivity. So before day one, as the new hire, you can customize the platform and you can put information in there about yourself. Do you have a nickname? What are your hobbies? What are your favorite TV shows? Have you seen season 7 of Game of Thrones? Have you moved your family to the area in order to take the job up? And your manager and your buddy are going to have access to that information pre-day one, so that perhaps on the phone conversation on the Friday before the new hire joins, you have some conversation starting points, or certainly on day one when you sit down together for the first time, you've already got a sense of the new hire's likes, dislikes, how to begin conversations and start to accelerate the journey to being comfortable with one another. Thank you, Neil. Here's an example of what that journey might look like from a new hire's perspective, and the platform opens up once you arrive in the organization on day one. So here from the new hire's perspective, you can see that there are building blocks, and the content that lies underneath each block tell a story of going from day one, week 2, 3, 4, month 2, 3, and then 4 through 12. I talked about the analysis piece at the beginning. Now, this platform menu can look very different depending on the needs of the organizations. We have a number of organizations who've reconfigured the platform so it looks like a Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. We have a number of organizations who tell us that all of their attrition pain points are in the first 90 days. So the platform is very heavily focused around the first 90 days. It might be day 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, month 2, month 3, and then 4 through 12. So there's various ways of making sure it's focused on combating or solving for issues within your organization. From a learner's perspective, as they click into one of those stages in the journey, again, there's a real clear sense of storytelling. So how do I succeed at Acme? The second block here is sitting down with my manager to build our first year journey together. There's coaching conversations, a check-in with my buddy, and then a leadership sign-off at the end of my week 2. Let me just talk for a second about the differences between the buddy role and the manager role. The manager is primarily there to make sure that the new hire is on the road towards functional success, and they're able to perform key tasks or demonstrate proficiency in key areas by checkpoints across the first year. The buddy is there to make sure that the new hire on the first day knows where to park, knows where the cafeteria is, feels good they're going to get paid on the Friday. Depending on the culture, the buddy might be there to allow the new hire to discuss any issues that they perhaps don't feel able or are happy to share with their manager. And then just the final thing I'll say about the screen before I move on there, you'll see in the bottom right there's the about this level. So again, there's a real clear sense of, if your journey is going well, here's what you should be saying about this stage in the journey there. So you can see there, hey, my buddy took me to the coffee on the roof for a coffee on the roof deck, what have you. So there's key triggers there, so the new hire has a sense of what should be happening and what they should be getting from each stage in the journey. This is a peek at the manager's perspective. So again, you can see here the manager has about 10 new hires. They have a different view of the same journey of day 1, week 2, 3, 4 through month 12. And throughout the year, the platform is going to continually nudge the manager. So if I'm the manager, is going to nudge me and say, hey, Dan, it's Alan's coming towards the end of Alan's first day. Have you found 5 minutes to sit down with Alan and go through the following checklist with him or ask him the following questions? At the end of week 4, the platform's going to nudge me on the Wednesday or the Thursday and say, hey, we're just checking in to make sure that you've got 10 minutes in the calendar with Alan to sit down and make sure that he's now proficient in the following areas. And then a sign-off comes at key points to make sure that Alan perhaps is able to demonstrate proficiency in particular areas of interest of the organization. We talked about making life easy for the managers. So as I said, all the way through the year, the platform is nudging managers. Now that might be via email, it might be via an app. That would be something that would come out with the design workshop at the beginning. But all the way through the year, the journey or the roadmap is nudging the manager to make sure they're having the right conversations at the right time and supporting their new hires and taking them on a journey to success. There is a secret sauce behind my first year. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it today just because this is a 60-minute presentation normally that we're going to try and get through here in 35 or so. But you can get a sense here of some of the secret sauce that underpins what, from the learner and manager perspective, should feel like a very simple and straightforward journey. But the platform all the way through the year is driving check-ins, conversations, buddy manager sign-offs, and learning events. Now those will be very specific depending on the organization, but that secret sauce is plugged in as a result of the analysis and the design at the beginning, and creates a very specific set of events that happen throughout the first year depending on the organization or depending on the role. And again, here's just a peek of a learner journey from one of our organization's perspective, where you can see there on day one, we're going to give the new hire their welcome box, their guide, we're going to go through their day one checklist, we're going to have an expectation setting conversation, the buddy's going to take them, I think in this case, of a tour of the facility, introduce them to the team, and all the way through the year there's a kind of clear series of events that will happen to make sure the new hire is being set up for success. I want to talk for a moment about this slide because although we've just spent the last few moments talking about the generic version of the My First Year platform, or the starting point, this slide is in here just to show how different the end result looks for individual organizations. And Rachel, I want to bring you back into the conversation here. I mean, one of the things, again, that's fun about working with KFC is you have a very specific audience, you have very specific expectations. So it'd be great to hear you talk about how you engage your new hires with your content at KFC.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And I think it is, our audience is fun. So we predominantly have a really young team member population, 16 to 25. And so because we also need to keep in mind that we want to get everybody up to speed as quickly as possible, we've been able to leverage some really fun and engaging ways to do that. And specifically for us, we've seen a lot of success with games and simulations. And we've found that they tend to be much more effective and create much more lasting behavioral change than, say, a 15 to 20-minute e-learning course, because not only can we engage our audience and keep them really interested in the training instead of the click next to continue, but also we're able to allow them to try, practice, and fail and try again in a contained, simulated environment instead of having them try and fail in front of our guests or in front of fellow team members. So we've had a lot of success with it, and our audience really enjoys it.
Thanks, Rachel. So having just said that the elements within the My First Year look very, very different to depending on the organization we're partnering with, I am just going to give you a peek at some of the My First Year content that we've rolled out and how that underpins the program. I talked about the pre-day one content and maximizing the new hires' enthusiasm. So here's an example of 3 pre-day one portals as seen by the audience at Thomson Reuters, State Street and United. One of the questions we ask when we partner with you at design workshop stage is, what can we give your new hires on day one to really communicate to them your investment in them? So what can we give them that's surprising, that perhaps they can take home and share with their family or their roommate at the end of day one, that really communicates that you're investing in them and hopefully starts to, start the expectation that they should also be investing their time and energy in you as an employer. And here obviously is an example of a couple of packs that we created for Walmart. And new hire guides, we talked about the roadmap throughout the first year. Here's just an example of roadmaps looking different at BASF and SAP. And critically with those new hire guides, it creates in the new hire the feeling that they can drive their success throughout the first year. They're not waiting on other folks to do things for them. They're in charge of driving their learning. They're very clear on what they can do to succeed throughout their first year. Coaching conversations and checklists, again, one of the things I've said a few times now is, how do we make life as easy for the managers as we possibly can? So not only are we nudging the managers to make sure that they're having the right conversations at the right time, but we're giving them materials so that when they sit down to have those conversations or go through checklists, they have everything they need to have a successful and clear meeting. Capstone game modules. This is something that only a small number of our My First Year partners have built thus far, but KFC did a wonderful simulation within their service mastery Capstone. And And this particular capstone with KFC was very much aimed around service and becoming a service master. And that was a great way of kind of celebrating and communicating to new hires that becoming a service master is really key to your success at KFC. And Rachel will talk about the business impact of that curriculum and the simulation in a minute or two. Okay, I'm going to get done in the next 4 or 5 minutes or less, so let me just go through the next couple of sections quite quickly. So does it work? There's a whole section on this, but all I'm going to say for now is that everything we deliver will work on your existing IT systems, guaranteed. If there's an LMS out there that this doesn't integrate with, we haven't found it yet. There would obviously be some discussion at the beginning in the analysis and design workshop stage, but that's something that we just wanted to make sure we touched upon in this workshop. If you're interested in learning more, I'll be happy to have a follow-on session. And in terms of the business impact, so here's an example of my first year at Ardent Healthcare. They're a healthcare partner of ours with facilities in a number of states throughout the US. And at Ardent Healthcare, within the first 18 months of rolling out my first year, nursing retention is up 7%. And Neil, let's go through the next 2 or 3 slides quite quickly. At Thomson Reuters, we rolled out a My First Year program to their sales organization, which is projected to be saving them $1.4 million each year. We've been partnering with Walmart for the last 5 or 6 years on their Pathways training, which is 87 hourly curriculums aimed at impacting engagement, retention, and productivity. Those numbers aren't publicly available yet, but the impact of Walmart we think has been quite significant, or we know has been quite significant. And then finally with Rachel at KFC, I'll just hand over to you and get you to talk about the impact of the Service Mastery Onboarding Program at KFC.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We are really deliberate at KFC to make sure that for every program we roll out, we're able to prove the business value to our leadership team. And that helps a lot in buy-in for future projects and for using the current projects that we have. And so for Service Mastery in particular, we were able to look at our Voice of the Customer survey data. So if anybody's visited a KFC, I'm sure you've seen the survey at the bottom of your receipt. We're able to take that data and compare it pre and post to training completion. And we've shown that restaurants who are 100% complete with the entire Service Mastery program have a quicker problem resolution. So guests say that their problem was resolved quicker and more effectively than restaurants who have not completed the program. And also in those same restaurants who've completed the program, guests tend to experience less problems. Like I said, this has been a big help and a big win, proving the value of this program to our entire system, and then also helping to sell in future programs as well.
I think key to it, Rachel, is that one of the things, again, that you did very well at the beginning of your onboarding initiatives is that finding out what's currently being measured by the organization, and then how do we can leverage it, I think is key. I think it's very difficult sometimes to create or identify new ways of measuring the effectiveness of the training and then actually make it happen. But one of the things that we do at the beginning is talk with our clients about how are you currently measuring some of these areas, and can we become a part of it? Because as you say, if you can prove it works, then it's gold dust, especially in the world of training and development.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're pretty much done now, just wrapping up. Just to recap on what I think is one of the most important points we covered in the last 30 minutes or so, which is that, well, first of all, I'd be delighted if you wanted to talk to us about my first year or learn more about it after this webinar. If you are just here as a learning exercise or just to see what's out there, then I would just challenge you to go back and sanity check. Do we feel really good about the analysis that underpins our onboarding? Do the designs and the roadmaps that we've created really focus in on solving for the goals that we're trying to solve for in the analysis? Is our onboarding training either 5 clicks away for our learners, or if it is 5 clicks away, and hopefully it is, or 5 clicks or less, when they get there, are we telling a real clear, engaging journey for the new hire? Do we feel good about the content? If I'm a new hire taking this content, do I really feel that it's setting me up for success and helping me understand what I need to do to be successful around here? And then finally, what is the leadership culture around the onboarding training? What kind of materials have we given our leaders? How easy are we making it for our leaders to set our new hires up for success? And I think that if you can feel good about each of those 5 building blocks, then you're well on the way to creating a successful new hire program. I would be delighted if you wanted to have a follow-up conversation after this webinar. Please reach out to me or anybody at Interactive Services. Also, I think Rachel Donley at KFC would be delighted to hear from you also if you want to connect or ask follow-up questions or perhaps engage in some benchmarking. So if you'd like to be connected to Rachel, again, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to put you in touch. And Rachel, I'm guessing you're also available via LinkedIn.
Yep, absolutely, Dan, and I'd love to connect with anybody that'd like to benchmark or talk about their programs.
Thank you all for attending. I hope you have an incredibly happy rest of Wednesday, and this webinar is a wrap. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.